Did everybody hear me?
I
Okay.
can hear you.
All right, perfect.
Hi.
Okay, it's 5:30 and I am going to go ahead and call meeting of the Shutesbury Select Board to order. Today is July 19th, 2022. And first thing I'll do is review the agenda and then we'll go from there. So we have public comment, then we have 3 sets of minutes to review this evening. We have been asked to review the language for sign that's going to be put up down at the canoe launch at Lake Wyola. Then the Energy Committee is here at 5:55 to talk about the community choice aggregation article that they would want on a special town meeting warrant. Then we have personnel appointment forms to review. We're going to be discussing the second round of ARPA requests. And Becky, I'm just going to mention now, if you have that spreadsheet that you shared with us last week to make that available again this evening.
I have it already.
Then at 6:35, we have the new library building committee charge, which I believe everybody's gotten information from Mary Ann. ZBA appointments, 3 CPC grant agreements that the select board have to vote on. Then we have the CARES grant closeout document, and then town administrator updates. And that should round out the evening. So why don't we go ahead and open it up for public comment. So anybody that, if you would use the raise hand feature, if you have a public comment. I see somebody MED. Is that person, can that person identify themselves?
Yeah, hi, Mary David.
Oh, hi, Mary. Okay, thanks. Okay, so seeing no public comment, then why don't we go ahead and go through the 3 sets of minutes that we have. I'm going to switch on my light to see if I'm not in the dark so much. Okay, that's a little bit better. So we have minutes of July 1st, 2022, and that was just Melissa and Eric. I believe around the fire chief.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am not going to vote on that, but do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of July 1st, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell abstain since I was not there. Then we have minutes from July 5th, 2022. Any additions, deletions?
The only thing I had is, I think in the discussion about ARPA money, I believe that's on that one, right? Yes, I think we talked about ARPA money for like the PA system for the town meeting, but that's my recollection anyway. I don't see that anywhere in here.
We did. You're right.
Okay, so that should be added. Was that, Linda, do you have a comment?
You're muted, Linda. It's okay. Don't apologize.
Okay, I think that is, if you just hold on for a second, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I see. Pending an estimate, the sound system is supported. That's all it says.
Yes.
I missed that sentence. I did miss
Yes.
that. That's my bad.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to be sure you knew it was there.
No, that's good enough. Thank you. That's good. Great.
And does that spreadsheet get attached to the minutes?
It would be great. I don't have it though. So Becky, if you can send it to me, that would be great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of July 5th, 2022?
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, I.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. And then we have the minutes of July 7th, which was the interview for the police chief, I mean, for the fire chief, sorry. Any additions, deletions, anything there that, any edits? Okay.
No, I didn't see any.
So do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of July 7th?
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, I.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. We're a little bit, or a few minutes ahead, so I got an email back from Penny Jakes saying that she was going to join us. I told her it was 5:42. I don't see her here now, just in case we had questions or edits for the canoe launch. So okay, maybe we could just move up the CARES grant closeout document, since that's kind of some housekeeping.
Okay, so as I was searching for the original form, I found that there was an online option that I'm gonna share the screen for, because when I just went through that, I confirmed everything, and it appeared that the online was what they were looking for. So
Can you just describe what this is in case anybody's,
okay, so in 2020, in the spring of 2020, when we started to have COVID situations, the state and the federal government worked together to bring to communities CARES money, CARES relief funds. This money for Shutesbury was $156,410. During the next year, that money was dispersed to a number of programs that assisted those in financial need for internet services. We did a number of build outs were paid for out of these funds to make sure people had internet service. All the election additional materials like $600 or $1,000 worth of $600 or $1,000 worth of stamps at different times were all paid for out of this fund, as well as tent rentals for annual town meeting. A whole variety of fundamental supplies for town hall, for masks and gloves, for support different things the police department was doing, KN95 masks. A bunch were given to the school to help them when they returned to school. So a whole variety of things. And at the closeout, the last two items that were purchased that appeared to be eligible were the owl for the sound system and the large screen TV. I had spoken to other people who had ordered same items as these, and they were approved, but in the end, they did not approve them for Shutesbury. So we had, we're going to be returning that amount, approximately almost the identical amount. It's $3,690.81 out of all the items that were purchased during those 2 COVID years.
Becky, did they give a reason why they did not approve those for Shutesbury?
They said they were hoping to, well, they didn't approve them for anybody in the last round. If they had been purchased like before they had, like in June of 2020, some of those I believe did slip through, but because they were hybrid, and they were trying to, they really were not supportive of bringing people back into the town hall at that point. And they said the new ARPA money would be eligible for those items, but not the CARES money. They drew the line right there.
So the net amount for us was the 152,640, is that
Correct. That's how much we,
used of the 156?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this report then goes back to the state, and
Yep.
you can do it electronically.
Yep, I confirmed everything. I think there was another form that's similar. So if the select board would just vote to confirm the CARES money closeout, in case that I find that other form, we can sign that one too.
All right,
Okay,
I'll make a motion that we vote to approve the closeout of the CARES money to be submitted electronically or on that additional form for signature.
Second,
do we need to add to that the money to be returned to the Commonwealth? Does that need to be part of the vote or not?
It can be, we have to do it either way.
Right, let me amend that. Let me amend that.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a new one. I make a motion that we vote to approve the use of $152,640.41 of the CARES money to be closed out, returning $3,690.81 to the Commonwealth for that were not approved to expenditures. That better?
Great.
Okay.
better.
I just thought it would be good to document it.
No, you're perfectly, that's a great idea.
Okay.
Second,
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker eye.
Farrell, aye.
Rita, we do have someone just signed in on iPhone. Do you want to ask them to?
Sure, yeah. If you could, if the iPhone person can identify themselves, please.
Hi there. If it's me, then it's Graham Sefton.
Oh, thank you,
Thanks, Graham.
Graham. Yes, it is you.
Yeah. and I'm just hanging in there to hear. I think ECAC is scheduled
Yes.
for. Is that true?
Yes, yep,
Okay.
at 5:55.
Okay. I'll just lurk in the background with muted and yeah. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks, Graham.
Thank you.
All right, so I know Penny Jakes has joined us. I did just see her a minute ago. She disappeared.
Oh, she's coming back in. I see her.
Oh,
coming
okay.
in again. I did have a couple edits to that sign. I
Okay.
sent them around kind of late. I can pop it up on the screen whenever anyone, they're not huge.
Sure.
And I know Kristen also has edits.
Oh, okay. I wonder if she has the same ones I did or similar.
Hey, Penny, are you with us? You're muted.
I am with you.
Okay, good, thanks. When we can't see you, we're never sure. Can you put these sign, can you share this sign, Melissa, I guess?
Sure. Give me 1 second.
So just as a little bit of background, there is
Everyone
a new,
see
well,
that?
Penny,
Or
you want to describe what we have down at the top of the lake and then what the sign is about?
Sure. So, gosh, probably 20 years ago, the town acquired a very small sliver of land on the north end of the lake, right where Merrill Drive turns off the paved road there. And it's sort of malingered for a very long time. And gosh, Rita, was it 5 years ago, I think? I wrote
Yeah.
a small, when I was on the Conservation Commission, I wrote a small grant to create a little park there that mostly will be a spot where people can, an alternate spot for people to put in canoes and kayaks. And also just a place for people to enjoy that end of the lake. And as I mentioned in the email I sent, so far the stone steps and a big stone are go down the bank of the lake, and there's a place to stand in the water to get into your boat. We put in a fence, we've planted some native shrubs, there's a small native plant garden there. And the highway department has put in 2 parking spaces. Steve Sullivan helped me put some rocks around the edge of those so people don't just drive beyond them into the spot. And we're pretty much ready to let people know that it's available for use. But we need to put up a sign before we can announce anything. And that's where we are today. And just sort of as additional background, there's been some unhappiness on the part of the abutters with this project moving forward.
That's been ongoing since it was initiated. Is that correct, Penny?
It's been ongoing for a good 20 years.
Okay.
But it's getting better. It's getting better.
Okay. And there was Community Preservation Act funding used to help create this, correct?
Correct. And the Conservation Commission contributed funds as well.
Great. So the plan is then to erect this sign right at the entrance to the.
Right where the 2 parking spaces are located.
Okay. All right. And you're looking for our feedback. And I know the Conservation Commission voted to endorse the sign. But I think it sounded like Melissa had a couple of edits and maybe Kristen.
Yeah, I'm interested in anyone's comments, but particularly Kristen's, because I'm just concerned there may be some enforcement issues I want to make sure our police officers feel comfortable with anything that arises.
Okay, why don't we start with Melissa and then Kristen.
Mine were very, very small. I'm sure Kristen has different ones, but so I reversed underneath the trash heading here. I reversed the carry out what you bring in, and then the reason why they should do that, because there's no trash cans. And then the other edit I made was I put, please don't pick the flowers, and then explain why. Those are just my 2, more preference than anything, but I thought they grabbed attention a little bit better on those 2 items.
Okay.
That was just it. Simple.
Sure. Okay, Kristen, did you have some suggestions?
Yes, please. So mine are a little bit more geared toward the enforcement as they were thinking. So first, before I get into that part, I just know how people read signs when it comes to prohibiting or allowing. And I think we need to sort of take everything and from the bottom to put it at the top. Prohibited should be first, and then the extra rules underneath. I'm feeling like when people see this, they're not going to want to read the entirety of it. That being said, in order to enforce these rules that are on the sign, we really need to add in per town bylaw. So we can add in per town bylaw for the dogs, for the amplified music, and for the alcoholic beverages. And I think that's important just so that people know that that is actually a town bylaw. And that way the officers are going to be able to cite if necessary. One of the questions that I have, I'm sorry, another edit.
So Kristen, can I just have you stop there just to, so per town bylaw is the alcoholic beverages, amplified music, and fires?
And no, and the dogs, we can add
And
it
the
for the
dogs.
fire. Yeah, we can add, I know there is something in regards to fires with the fire department. Am I right, Becky?
Yeah, they prohibit, cooking fires in certain areas, and I think that would
That's a
be one of
bylaw
the
too, isn't it?
areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can definitely add that under, we can do an all bylaw. I just think that that's going to be able to make it easier, Rita, for the officers to cite and to explain to
see.
people. Okay. Did you have something else?
No, it was more just making sure that what we're referring to with
Okay.
regards to bylaws.
Okay.
And so was it all the things listed there fall under the bylaw? Is that correct, Kristen?
I'm not sure if camping does. I actually was trying to look that up and I got kind of a busy day.
Well,
Was-
that can actually be removed because it does it not say, it says open dawn to dusk. So in fact,
That means no
Okay.
camping.
people shouldn't be there at 2 a.m.
Right. Now, the picnicking that we have put on there, that picnicking is permitted, I just know how these things go and people are going to probably attempt to cook in that spot as well because they're going to say that's part of picnicking. So you might want to think about the wording for that.
Do you have any suggestion?
I don't right now. Maybe somebody else might. I think that you could leave that part out and see how it plays out. Canoeing and kayaking, access. That's
Or just say after, in parentheses, no fires, no barbecue fires.
No cooking.
Yeah, no cooking.
But it says
because
above,
it's not just about the fires, it's about grills and things like that, people were bringing grills out to the dam area last year to do cooking and
oh
picnicking.
my.
So that part,
Could you say under the prohibited part where it says fires, no fires or grills?
I would say no cooking in general.
Mm-hmm. So
No.
then it should be under prohibited rather than under,
I would agree.
yeah,
Yes.
under what you can do.
Yes, that's what I think. And again, it's just because I know how, people visiting sort of think and interpret the signs. We also do have a great amount of visitors that have, their native tongue is not English. And so that was something else I was going to bring up as well.
Mm-hmm.
Under parking, if we could talk about parking spaces are reserved for those using, it should say the top of the lake conservation area. And then I would say only after that and put a period. All others will be towed. And then we can just take out parking for Lake Wyola State Beach and Park is available within the park. Because if we just say that it's for the top of the lake conservation area only, that's taking out the DCR part. Less confusing that way, in my opinion. Doesn't mean that it has to change. That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably one of the most important things is reporting violations. Could we please change that number to the non-emergency dispatch line instead of the station phone number? Because sometimes we're not at the station all day long and we won't get these reports. But if they call the non-emergency dispatch line, then they will dispatch us to that spot anywhere we are in town. So that's 413-625-8200.
Okay, so is that, you want to just take another look at that? Kristen,
By
to make
town
sure.
bylaw written. I missed where that should be written.
So I think, Melissa, the town bylaws cover just about everything in prohibited.
Maybe
and
prohibited as per town bylaws?
yes, I would say that. And then also the dogs under to be leashed or under voice control per town bylaw for that as well.
It's bylaws in the
Yeah, I
plural,
would-
right? Because
I would
it's
say
more than one.
bylaws. Yeah.
Thank you.
And so under dogs, repeat that, must be leased or under voice
Yeah, we're-
control as per town bylaw.
I would prefer that that gets repeated exactly right there.
Okay.
It's hard when we know people are watching you type.
It is.
My goodness gracious.
A lot of pressure, Melissa.
I know. And you're not even sitting in the room watching me. Okay. Was there-
Melissa, under parking, can you make only all caps?
There again. Okay.
Excellent. I think those were my tops.
You wanted to, did you put in under parking spaces are reserved for those utilizing instead of
That's right. I
Yep.
did say that, Becky. Thank you. I would say utilizing the top of the lake conservation area. That was just it sounded better to me, not a police thing. And keeping that in mind, everybody, that's going to be really
Do we want to add towed at owner's expense at that point? Or the parking?
well, if
Sure.
they're
I
could
think we
put-
should. There's an
Okay.
argument. Go ahead, Kristen, I'm sorry.
Now, you could put towed at owner's expense, but that's sort of understood when you're saying that, you know, you'll be towed.
Okay.
That's for them to work out with the tow company after that.
I have a super minor change. After the word birds in the last thing there, native wildlife, and I think there should be a comma. I'm one of those people that thinks it should be a comma before and. I know that maybe that's not.
And so does Word. So I think it's
Yeah,
a
there we
good
go.
practice.
that
I don't
makes me
usually
happy.
argue with Word too much. Sometimes, but not a lot.
I
Okay,
think they say you can do it. You don't have to do that anymore, but that's how I was taught to
yeah, it's,
write
yeah,
English.
it looks better, I think. Okay,
That being said, all of the changes in regards to the town bylaws, the wording that talks about utilizing this space for top of the lake conservation area, it does not have a strong bite. It doesn't have a lot of teeth in that. And it's going to be, if we have somebody up there that says that they're using the space, I really I can't question that. Do you know what I'm saying? So let's say we have somebody parked there, hypothetical. Okay. So we have someone parked there. And to me, it doesn't look like they're using it for canoeing or kayaking. But, you know, they're like, oh no, I'm using this space because I'm, you know, coming back and gazing at the beautiful wildflowers. I can't tow them.
What if you find that they're at the state beach?
If they're at the state beach and I find that out, I sure can. But we can sometimes have 300 people at the state beach, and I would have to go tracking them
Right.
down on foot, and they could be out in the water in a kayak. I guess what I'm saying is it's going to be pretty difficult to check to see who's actually utilizing the space and who is lying and not really utilizing it for what we intend it to be. So I just want everyone to kind of keep that in mind.
Have there been the same sort of parking issues that there have been other summers this year, Kristen?
Thankfully, no, we've been staying on top of it. So, yeah, thankfully, no. I think that what I've heard is that gas prices have made it so that there's not as many people as there were last year and the year before.
Mhm.
But the officers are getting out and driving around and seeing people try to park in places that they shouldn't before they actually do. So we're sort of circumventing any
Mhm.
issues before it happens.
Mhm. So one question that I have that doesn't relate specifically to this sign is that the abutter on the west side, I think it's Mr. Dragon, has a large sign immediately on his property, very adjacent to where the 2 parking spots for the park are, that says "Park here." And that's new as of this year, and I'm not really sure what's up with that. I'm wondering, can he be asked to move that sign slightly further onto his property so it doesn't look like people are being told to park at
Wait,
the park?
We can certainly ask him, and he can certainly tell us no.
Yeah, I know.
I will ask him though, and see if he'll be kind to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the select board has had a chance, and we'll take a couple of questions because we're kind of over our time limit here. So Eric or Melissa, any other comments?
I just have a question about whether or not we should duplicate this sign in Spanish. I mean, is it okay to just have this up in English if half the people that go here go to the lake or not? That's not their native language.
Yeah, that was one of my points, Eric. Thank you. I think it would be helpful.
That's a good suggestion.
Okay, Miriam?
Yeah, I'm wondering whether a time limit for parking would assist in enforcement, saying, 4 hours, for example. It's unlikely someone would canoe for more than 4 hours, I think. But if somebody was parking all day or, allowing their friends to park there because they're in a butter, then the police could monitor that.
So ideally, we could attempt to monitor that, but remember that there's typically only one of us per shift, and it's probably not going to be perfect. I'm sort of wondering if maybe we have the sign the way we're making these, changes, and then kind of just see how it goes.
I think that's a good idea. I wouldn't get too complicated. See if there's a problem, and then if there's a problem, we'll deal with it. But there very well may not be.
Okay, Penny, and then Gail, but please make it brief.
As I look at this, I see prohibited, and everything else that follows is under prohibited. How about doing enjoy this beautiful spot centered so that the rest is what I can enjoy?
Oh, good call. Well, hang on a second, I'll do that.
Thank you.
I like that.
Yeah, it's good change.
Gail?
And the same type font as the prohibited, please. So it's parallel to prohibited.
So it carries the same weight, yeah.
And enjoy this beautiful spot.
Yes.
Great. Better? Does
And
that
the space, put the space back in. Yep.
Oh, put it back in? Okay.
After music. No.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. I'll take that one out.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Miriam, did you have one more comment, or did you just leave your hand up? Okay. Yeah, I'd like to move on. So Penny, you're going to take this and get a sign made, like a professional sign on a post, the whole thing?
Indeed.
Okay. And in Spanish too?
Well, that hadn't been part of the budget, but if people feel that that's important, yes.
Okay.
Need it translated, Penny?
Yep.
Translated?
No habla español.
Okay.
Okay, so do you need a vote from us?
So can I fuss with the formatting a little bit?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
As long as I don't change anything substantive?
yes. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Kristen,
So,
particularly thank you for your input.
so
My
do I,
pleasure.
do I hear a motion to approve this sign, the content, the format might well change for the top of the lake conservation area?
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. And Penny, just, is there going to be any kind of ribbon cutting, groundbreaking, formal announcement of the opening, the official opening?
Yes, I actually think that that is an important thing to do, particularly because Mr. Carey has still been resistant to people being there. And I think if something formal is organized and a number of people come and it's a cheerful, happy thing, that will set a good tone.
Okay. We could bring a grill and a few bottles of champagne and, you know.
Yeah, right.
Amplified music.
Loud music.
Get rowdy and.
Okay, I'll be there.
Just kidding. Will you keep us posted then? And I assume that the select board and the Conservation Commission would be happy to join in any kind of, and the Community Preservation Committee too.
Yep, I'll invite all,
Okay,
including your butters.
okay. That
Penny,
sounds-
I just emailed that to everybody that got it the first time, but I just emailed it, so Penny has it.
Okay, thank you all so much.
Thank you,
Okay.
Melissa, for all the formatting. That was great.
Oh,
Yes. Okay, so we're running a little bit behind schedule, but I see that we have a number of members of the Energy Committee who have joined us this evening, and I believe that Nate is going to be the lead here, Nate Hurd, on a discussion about community choice aggregation, which is a recommendation coming forth from the Energy Committee.
So
So
Rita,
Nate-
I'm just going to jump in real quick because
Sure.
I want to call us to order because we have a quorum and we might chime in
Okay.
about the ARPA stuff. So I'll just call us to order at 6:08. And I think just introduce it really quickly. This is, you all created ECAC with the idea if we could bring you recommendations about climate and energy and resilience generally. And this is our first recommendation that the committee voted on. The way we're ending up doing it as topics come up, we're sort of assigning someone to be the lead. And so Nate was the lead and I'd say phenomenal researcher on the concept of community choice aggregation, which is one of the ways that we think can have an impact across town. So I think what we're thinking, he's got a presentation which is to the point and short, and then we can answer your questions and go from there. So I will hand it over to Nate.
Yeah, thanks,
Great.
Michael. Would it be possible for me to have permissions to share my screen? I think alternatively I could.
Sure, Nate. I'm working on it. 1 second.
Awesome.
Where did you go?
You see him, Becky?
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. Got it. Well, thanks for having us. It's really exciting. Can everyone see my slides? So I first learned about community choice aggregation of electricity listening to an interview with a professor at MIT who was talking about a journal article that he just published. And the article describes Massachusetts legislation, which is actually fairly old, that allows communities to take over the electricity supply function from utility companies. So when we get our household electricity bill from National Grid, there is a delivery component and a supply component. And this legislation, it gives us the option to change the supply of electricity from the default, which typically includes a lot of fossil gas-based generation of electricity, to something that generates less carbon pollution. And as a result, you might receive mail that offers you the option of sourcing your supply of electricity to a solar farm or wind turbines. We definitely get a fair amount of that mail. So what community choice aggregation or CCA does is it's when a community organizes supply options for itself, which would include a basic service, but it could also include greener options. And it turns out that a lot of communities in Franklin County and across the state either have a CCA in place or they're in the process of approving a CCA program. Just about half of the towns in the state are doing this. As you can see from this map, communities may choose like more green options or less. So there really are there's a lot of flexibility in how communities can approach CCA. Okay. So what is community choice aggregation of electricity? CCAs purchase electricity through a contract and they become the default supplier for their community. It's written into the legislation that individuals can opt out or they can opt back in at any time. It turns out that most people stay. Only about 3 to 5% opt out. And what that means is they would go back to the default National Grid, or I guess Eversource is also supplying for part of Shutesbury. But under aggregation, the utility still does the delivery function. So National Grid or Eversource, they still deliver electricity to your house. It sends your bill. It maintains the power lines if there's a storm. And so they address outages as well. Communities can take one of two routes. We'll call it market aggregation and public aggregation. Most communities use a broker, which handles a lot of the paperwork and the contract negotiations. The broker then charges a small fee per kilowatt hour, and then that's contained in the supply charge, right? It's part of your bill. You might have heard about the Amherst, Pelham, Northampton aggregation. That's an example of public aggregation. And what they did is they set up a nonprofit organization, a joint powers entity, and that fills the role of the broker for those three communities. So it will do all of the heavy lifting, but it's able to capture that small fee for other purposes within the towns. So their effort and Cape Light Compact are, I think, the only examples that I'm aware of that approach CCA like that in the state. So why would a community do CCA? Well, within the CCA, you can offer residents different choices. So one option, so like one goal of a CCA could be to lower rates because the supply is contained through a contract. The price of electricity for that contract term is quite stable, right? So you're not subject to the same kinds of fluctuations that you might otherwise be from an electricity provider. Another objective might be to make the default supply of electricity greener, right? So there's a state requirement for green sourced electricity. You could exceed that in the default, and you can also offer people a 100% renewable option. So here are just two examples of what that rate structure might look like. And these are just from Franklin County, of course. So you can see, I hope you're able to read this, but in effect, the default rates for these communities have the mass clean energy requirement and an additional percentage on top of that, above the state requirement. So there's also a basic rate which just meets the requirement, and then a 100% what's called a Class 1 renewable energy certificate option. So that just would mean sourced from hydroelectric or solar or wind or another renewable source. But you know, the plans include options for a cheaper basic plan as well as a 100% renewable plan. Okay. So the creation of a CCA, it starts with research, which is something that ECAC has undertaken. And then there's a town vote on whether to authorize the CCA approach. The next step would be to solicit proposals from energy brokers if you're going to go the market route. And there are several brokers that support the large majority of CCAs in the state. And then the broker then develops a plan with DOER, and then that plan is voted on by the select board. And then if the plan is approved, it goes to DPU. And I understand that this step takes the longest out of all of these steps, so that can take a while. And then the remaining steps of the process are the supplier selection and the contract execution, followed by a rollout of the program. And from what I've seen of other communities, there's usually a simple website interface that anyone in the community can either make their choice, or they can do it by phone or by snail mail as well. Are all options for interacting with this choice set. So, all right, we're getting close here. So as ECAC discussed this, we were really encouraged that it might be possible to present the town with options to reduce rates while also supporting a more widespread adoption of renewable electricity. And of the two approaches, of market aggregation and public aggregation, going with a broker seemed to make the most sense. And going that route wouldn't preclude the community from being more ambitious in the future as well. So I'll conclude with warrant article language that we drafted and then voted to present to you. So this text, it borrows heavily from similar articles that other towns have used to set their CCA journey in motion. And I think with that, I'd like to, I see I'm joined by, a number of my colleagues from ECAC. So maybe I'll see if I might have missed something or slightly misspoke in some way, but that is our presentation of CCA for you today.
Good, thanks, Dave. I'm getting a lot of feedback. I'm not sure. Is that?
So Rita,
Nate?
can I
Yeah,
jump
go
in
ahead.
again, Rita?
Sure.
So Nate, first, thank you very much. Always consistently good presentations. A couple of clarifying things. Of course, with the warrant article, we'd have to run it by Donna, but I think we wanted to share this because, you know, unless you see it, it becomes a mystery of like what's involved. But it really is not a complex process in terms of actually doing it. In terms of the choices, one of the slides that Nate put out, and one of the things we liked about it was not only would it enable the town to move forward in terms of renewables and green, but really sort of capture the breadth of what residents probably are interested in. But you know, this would be part of a engagement process. But we thought people can select sort of the standard version where they're just saving, you know, on lower rates. If that's all they want is, you know, they want to make sure they're saving money, that's an option. If people just want to sort of do midline, more renewable, green, we can do that. And then given the most recent discussions about, you know, forests and water, we can actually require that the sourcing is not coming from places where they're cutting down forests, for example. So all three of those could be of the choices. It sounds like there's usually 3 choices put on the table for consumers to pick from. So we design it, which is really nice. And that's part of the idea of the broker, is that they're accountable to what we want to sort of design it as for. And then the last thing I'd say is those of us who were in town at the time were sort of envisioning this similar to the rollout education with broadband, where if the select board agreed that this is something we want to do, that ECAC would make a point between now and a special town meeting of developing educational information, doing a session, most likely online, unless something really changed, where people would learn about it in the community, and then, you know, we'd have a town meeting vote, and it's because you can opt in and out at any time. It's not as consequential. So it's not going to hit people's pockets in the same way as if we're committing, and that's all.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Eric, Melissa, do you have any questions?
One question I have is, I'm sure, how does this differ from, you know, greening up your bill as we now do? Like I mean, I have National Grid as a supplier, but I choose to green up the bill. So you need to say, okay, I'll pay more. I will have renewable energy coming to my house. Is that how different? What's the difference between this and that for the individual?
Nate, you want to do that? Maybe you can pull down the screen too, so we can all see each other.
Sure. How's that? Okay. So I think part of what CCA accomplishes is it changes the default, right? So it's something that everyone would be able to opt out of, but it sort of sets a level opt-in, which, you know, through the solicitation of bids, it gives the town more options to kind of specify, you know, what's being offered. So with National Grid, and I'm not as familiar with that program, you can choose one of their, presumably a handful of their suppliers, but it would effectively change the default for the whole town.
I think there's 2 other things I would say, Eric. I mean, one of note is National Grid is not offering you the option to save money anywhere. So they're not saying, hey, Eric, here's the program where you can pay less. And so
Right.
by doing CCA, we're driving the price down for everybody in town. So I think that's something that's another. And the other thing that's important, and I think why ECAC thought it was a good thing to bring forward, it's a town-wide systematic response. So what you're doing with Green Up is just an individual, and you know, while that's okay, and we can mobilize more people to do individual actions, if we can present a systematic approach that allows for savings plus greening, it seems more appropriate.
Yeah, I don't think you can choose either. When you green up, I mean, it could be from solar farms that some people wouldn't like. So that's a green option as far as they're concerned.
Right, exactly. Yeah. As in many things, their Shutesbury options are often different.
Melissa, any questions? Gail, I see your hand. Gail's a member of.
Yes,
Okay.
I just wanted to reply to Eric that you might think of it as a buyer's club. So that the aggregation, the entire community has the power of making this selected for everybody in the community. So you as an individual for Green Up, but in the aggregation, you have the bargaining power for the entire community.
Right. No, that's good. I like it.
So I had just a couple of comments. One is, how long has Amherst, Pelham, Northampton had this?
They don't have it.
Yeah.
They don't
Yes.
have it. Oh, okay. So they're considering it. Okay.
Nate's got the update.
I think I can provide a little bit of an update. So, as I mentioned in my presentation, they're trying something that's substantially more ambitious than what most communities are doing with CCA. I did read, I think just a couple of days ago, yesterday or the day before, that they've gotten to the stage of selecting their supplier. They've been at it for quite a while because they had to stand up this nonprofit, and it was a fairly ambitious effort on their part. But they are getting close. Yeah.
And that's probably not the route that we would go, creating a nonprofit.
Correct. I think that's the idea with the, so, I mean, the benefit of having a nonprofit, and I think what Amherst is thinking about is that 0.001%, they can then apply to electric car chargers or whatever other projects they want in town.
Mm-hmm.
What we talked about at ECAC is, I mean, they literally had their first meeting in the last month, that we can pull out of our contract whenever it ends if we decide that when it hits maturity, we want to join in. Because we did discuss, should we try to figure out how to join with them, but we wanted to be able to go faster rather than sort of going through their growing pains with them.
Okay, all right. And I guess the other part of my question is, would us doing this help us to, as part of DOER's kind of climate leaders, and would this give us any points towards that?
You're thinking about like the email that they just sent out with the green communities? Yeah. Gail might have insight. My sense is that there's more and more bundling, the confluence of DOER, climate resiliency kind of stuff, either for grant benefits of getting extra points or more opportunities. I'm assuming if there's a new administration that there might be, even more opportunities. So I don't know anything per se with that one yet, but Gail, do you know?
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious since that had just come out and then we were talking about this tonight. So just, for your information, we don't have a date yet about a town meeting. There's been some very, vague discussion about something early winter, very late fall, early winter. Becky, is that?
We'll see. It could end up in November.
All right. So it sounds like your plan to have kind of whole education process, we can vote tonight about moving this forward, and obviously, as more information is gathered, we would want to revisit before putting an article on the warrant. But Eric and Melissa, if you're in agreement, we could just kind of confirm the select board's interest in pursuing this, subject to, some final information from ECAC. Is that would that give you enough to feel confident about moving forward?
My sense is I don't know how much more information we could probably provide. So I think it's more about like you guys sort of sitting with it. Once we know that we want to go forward, I think the process would be that we could send the draft warrant language to Donna, just sort of get that finalized. So we're not juggling too many balls at the last minute, and then start preparing educational materials, and we could sort of scale that for earlier in fall. So, it's one less activity for, leading up to a town meeting. But, not to say that you guys have to vote tonight, but Nate, I don't think there's additional information we could necessarily provide. It's more at this point conceptual, because we wouldn't reach out to brokers and they wouldn't give us any bids or anything. It's too premature.
I think that's
one of the things I would really like is to have some community education. So if something surfaces through the process of having, this out in the public. So, maybe we don't vote this evening on the article, but just give you an indication. I mean, from my perspective, it seems like something definitely worth pursuing. I encourage you to move forward at some point if you need, when you need the absolute vote from us, then we can go ahead and do that. Eric, Melissa, that seem?
Yes.
That seems like a good idea to me.
Gail?
In terms of doing the education, though, it would be helpful if we had the select board approving going forward with the intent that this would appear as an article on the warrant that would need approval by the community, so that we have some reason to educate folks in town, because they're going to be voting on this. We don't know the date of the meeting, but at the next meeting, whether it be a special town meeting or an annual town meeting.
Yeah,
It'll come up as a
I guess I
question.
think it's just, I think I want to sit with it a little bit longer myself. I read the materials. I think just maybe it takes just at another meeting and not.
I think Rita, I think that makes sense. I think sort of marrying your point and Gail's, if the select board sits with it and then, makes a decision to vote for us to go forward, because we can then develop, a fact sheet and a presentation and figure out our outreach strategy and all that stuff. But I don't think we want to do that unless you guys say, yeah, this is good.
Okay. Does that make sense? Eric and Melissa, just.
I think so.
I'm okay with waiting and letting it sit a bit. And in that regard, I'd love to have a copy of that PowerPoint somehow.
That would be great. Yeah. Yes. Thank you for having that. Okay, so we will put this on the agenda, but I think I'm in agreement. This is something really good to pursue. I'd like to do a little bit more due diligence myself. So and that was, Nate, having that presentation was great. But I think you can have confidence moving forward that this is something that looks like it would be good for the town.
Cool. Well, we'll put the PowerPoint on the ECAC website. We can email it to select board directly. And then I think I'm just going to keep our meeting open until after the ARPA fund discussion, if that's okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. So looking at the schedule here.
Time check is 6:34.
I see that. Tonight I do have my phone here. So we are running behind schedule, and I apologize to everybody who's here for something a little bit later. But why don't we go to the personnel appointment forms and review those?
That should be quick. We have a PAF for a new library substitute, Samantha Spasiak. And we have an appointment of Linda Scott to the newsletter committee.
Okay. All right. So do you need votes on those too?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And Linda has more because, hi, Linda.
Hi, I just want to remind you about Carrie Stone.
That's right. I knew there was one more appointment, but I knew Linda would be here to remind me. Thank you very much. Carrie Stone, appointed as a town hall support person, reappointed.
Okay. So do we need to vote on each of those individually?
They could be done as a group.
Okay. So can you repeat the names?
Okay, so the Carrie Stone as town hall support. Linda Scott, appointed to the newsletter committee. And Samantha Spasiak, a new hire as a library substitute.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve those personnel action forms, those 3 individuals?
So moved.
Second, but I do have a question. What does Carrie Stone do? I don't know this. I don't know. I'm just curious.
Okay, Carrie has volunteered and helped with the elections office over the years. She's our top election guru volunteer. And so she helps set things up and clean things up and work through things with grace. And sometimes does other office support.
Okay. Second, then.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Carol, aye. Okay, so now we had our initial discussion about ARPA and the requests that came in from different town committees at the last meeting. And Becky, if you can share the spreadsheet that you had prepared, and we can talk about kind of where things stand. So we have a total of $525,000 that will be available to the town, and we've had a number of requests, and we kind of categorize them. If you look, starting in column, I think J through L there, some of our initial discussions. So we had from the moderator, request from the library. We didn't have an amount from the library, and I believe Marianne is here this evening to give us an update on that. The MLP, and then the Energy Committee, there were no dollar amounts, a bunch of ideas, so we didn't go through it. And then we had a couple of items from the town administrator and town clerk having to do with tents. So were we to fund everything, we were kind of in the red there. And we had allocated, we've kind of set aside $300,000 of this funding for the school roof. So it left us with about $225,000. And depending upon whether or not we get the MSBA funding, we might or might not need some or all of that 300,000, but that's TBD. We should be getting some more information soon about that. So I think, we put some things on hold based on, wanting to see the whole picture. But maybe we just move down to the library. And because Marianne, I believe you have supplied us with some updated information about what the library needs in order to do the environmental testing on Lotto 32.
So first, I'll just say that I'm doing it more on behalf of the town, just so that the town can get this cleared up before the library design process happens. So I really sort of see the testing around B9 and this whole issue as the town's issue, whether or not we're building a library there. And I just wanted to get it moving. So I got quotes from 4 different licensed site professionals, we reported the VOC that were found at Bore 9 last summer to the DEP. Becky did that as was required. And then the DEP said to consult with licensed site professionals about the work that needs to be done next. So I got proposals from 4 different licensed site professionals, which I sent to all of you. And the one that I liked the best is the one from Fuss and O'Neill. So they all more or less propose doing the same thing, doing some more soil borings around Bore 9. And I've asked Fuss and O'Neill to sort of read over everything that we've done at Lot 032, to sort of do a desktop review of all the work that's been done there over the past 10 years and give us a summary and make recommendations, and then do the borings around B9, and then if indicated, they would put in a groundwater monitoring well to test the, if the soil borings indicate a larger presence of VOCs, then they would put in a groundwater monitoring well to look for VOCs in the groundwater near Bore 9. And then depending on the findings, then they would make recommendations about what would need to be done next, and join us in those conversations with the Army Corps of Engineers and DOP and the DEP. And it's, you want to know a dollar amount. So the initial proposal is $15,153 from Fuss and O'Neill.
And Marianne, did you get any sense that, were there any add-ons to that they?
So that includes the monitoring and the reporting. That includes the monitoring well if it's needed. So that's, soil borings around B9. That it might, we might have to have the highway department go in and do some clearing. They would have to come out, look at it. It's pretty heavily wooded back there. So the highway department might have to come out and do some clearing around B9. So it doesn't include any money for anything like that. But I thought that would be work that the highway department would do.
Rita, could I ask a question?
Yeah, I don't want to get into details of permitting or anything here tonight. This is about the allocation of money, I assume.
Yeah,
So go
just
ahead.
wondering if if any of this is allocated for doing a wetlands delineations for any of this.
No, this is about the VOCs that were found at Bore 9, not about construction.
But even tree removal, if it's in the buffer zone, if you don't have it delineated, it would be. So we can talk about that later. I don't want to get into that, but
We haven't had any tree removal to do the other work. So that's a question mark, whether it's needed or not. And if it is, then we'll follow the appropriate process.
So that's a fixed price then, Marianne. I mean, yeah.
Right.
For the
Right.
for B9. Okay.
Right. You have somebody in the waiting room, Becky. So if wetland delineations need to be done, then that requires hiring another professional, and then and then it's you know, it's, so what does Miriam mean by wetland delineations? Because it's a 20-acre parcel. And so far, the only wetlands that have been delineated are up on the front 5 acres. And you know, there certainly are wetlands at the other end of the parcel. But I don't know how close there are wetlands to B9, and wetlands haven't been delineated there. So, you know, perhaps we should, and that's going to be expensive. If that's going to be required, then perhaps we should just wait on this. I mean, you could approve this funding, and then I'll have to come back for funding for the wetlands delineation.
Could we put an up to figure here, assuming like if we added $2,500 to this, that would be sufficient to cover any wetlands delineation?
I can't make any kind of guess about how much wetlands delineation would cost.
Okay. All right. So I think we determined that this was a high priority and we were looking for a figure. Eric and Melissa, do you want to go ahead and vote on this for the ARPA funds this evening? I know there's some urgency to kind of getting this moving.
I do, but I'm just curious. So just so I'm clear with my own head, this is just for there's no remediation here. This is just to determine whether or not something has to be done.
Yes.
So if something has to be done, that's going to cost money somewhere from someplace. That's all. I'm only pointing that out.
Yes, that is correct.
Different conversation at a different time.
That may be, but just, yeah, that's all.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to approve $15,153 to cover the cost of the Fuss and O'Neill contract for the environmental investigation at Lotto 32?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. And Miriam and Becky and Marianne, if you can talk together about whether or not a wetlands delineation would be needed, that would be good, because I know we do want to get moving with this. So
Great.
we need
Thank
some
you.
approval. Okay.
I might be up next anyway. Oh, you have the whole ARPA to do. All right.
Yeah.
I'll be back. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So did we vote on the vehicle exhaust fume?
No, we only designated it as the workplace safety issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we talked, do you want to vote on that now, or did we want to do more investigation about that? That doesn't, maybe, I don't know, maybe we want to wait on that one just for the new.
Maybe we can put, and maybe we put that on for our next meeting, just because
Okay.
it's a workplace safety thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it doesn't
So,
take too long.
And we should change the word exhaust to exhaust.
It's true.
Just saying.
We exalted the exhaust.
All right. Sorry.
Okay, and I know folks from the Energy Committee are here. Did you want to add something, suggest what the priorities are and what
Yeah, I can jump
dollar
in.
amounts?
Well, I think I would start by saying apologies for not having dollar amounts, but I think there's a reason for it. But I'll just sort of tell you the background behind it, and then if other people wanted to chime in. But all the things that were here, with the exception of grant writing, were identified in either municipal vulnerability plan or the hazard mitigation plan. So these are things that have already been identified. And some seem more pressing. So the creation of a climate response fund is sort of an overarching thing. And I guess what we're thinking is that could be a receptacle if you wanted to have a revolving fund for climate response. One of the things I've been thinking about is that now that we have a library, we can think about, well, do we want to have an annual contribution to climate response fund? And that might be something the select board thinks about, so that we're always putting something into the kitty, because world's changing quickly and we can't predict. So that might just be the bucket. There's no money specifically attached to it, but underneath that with the consultant fees, the stormwater engineering is probably the highest level of importance. Miriam suggested, and this is sort of back of the envelope, like it could be somewhere between 50 and 75,000 depending, but there's considerable talk about the integrity of the roads given stormwater, and the MVP action grant that we submitted was for that. But unless you really have a town-wide engineering survey, you can't then go ask for more money. So that's the required first step, is to pay for the engineering study, and then we can continue to go to MVP each year or other sources to deal with that. Community solar is, that would be for just paying for the research of it. And what we're thinking about here with community solar is small scale installations around town. And we're already having some conversations with Co-op Power where they might be interested in working with us, and we're having conversations. But if we wanted to have some kind of assessment of if we wanted to put small scale solar in municipal areas like behind Town Hall expansion, or the fire department, or the highway department, or the school, paying someone to do some of that research so that we can then make informed decisions. And like I said, Co-op Power might do some of that. If we wanted to work with them, they could wrap it in. But that's the cost for that. And we don't have a scope, so we don't have a sense of that. Update the master plan, I think, is probably not at the top of the list. I haven't broached it in the last year with the planning board. And I know the planning board is still sort of putting a lot on hold because we're still waiting to see what happens with the 4 or 5 solar. But the idea there would be, if we're ever going to pull that off, we're going to have to hire a consultant because it takes community engagement. So this could be, at some point when we're seem like we're ready, we can put it into the climate response fund. And then the grant writing is, I think, is sort of to the top of the list, in the sense that, like Rita, how you were talking about the green communities, there is a green communities grant opportunity this fall. And if we can have money to take advantage of the opportunities, one of the systematic problems is all of our small towns with small capacity, even though we're all really good volunteers, we miss opportunities because we don't have the bandwidth to do it. So if we can invest in some grant writing for some of these things, whether it's complete streets or MVP again, or green communities, or whatever's coming down the pike, that would be a good investment just to leverage additional funds. And again, that's sort of expandable. It depends on how much we wanted to do. It could be 5,000, 10,000. And again, we can re-up it as we refill the coffers. And then the last thing, which is extend the town infrastructure. We're having conversations, but that's much bigger. And it's probably a higher dollar amount to do that. So I think that's less likely. So I guess the way I would frame it is, if we looked at stormwater engineering and grant writing, and maybe some other unanticipated costs, like, I had a conversation with Eric about charging stations, which is something when I was on the select board, Melissa and I had discussed. That's not a lot of money. There might be grants for it, but it's also an easy way to invest. So, if we put in $50,000 or $75,000 into the fund, it would get us going for some of that stuff. And then I think we would just have a subsequent conversation about if we can get it into the annual budget as an allocation of some sort. But I don't know if anyone else from ECAC wants to chime in with more detailed information.
So Michael, I just had a question on the MVP. We had no stormwater engineering. So is that something that if we get the MVP grant that we have to do prior, or I was
Well-
thinking about the timing because I don't recall the details and I didn't look back at the
We're-
grant application.
I think we sort of did a little quick step because we said it was the interface of stormwater and dirt roads. So we sort of minimized where we were saying we wanted to put the money because we didn't have a whole town-wide approach. So a
Right.
stormwater approach should really be looking at the whole town, paved, unpaved, et cetera, and using that. So if we, because what MVP told us is come back next year and the next year and the next year. And so if we wanted to have that be our priority, we could just use that engineering report as sort of the foundation from which we keep asking them for money. Does that answer your question, Rita?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, questions, Eric, Melissa?
Not at this moment.
So are you looking for us to put in a kind of dollar amount into that climate response fund or a specific
Yeah.
line item to start with?
I think either would be fine. I mean, I was thinking, if we put in, and I think this is more conversation on an annual basis, but if we put in $10,000 or $15,000 into the climate response fund, it would give us some flexibility, if nothing else, for a grant writer for this coming fall, because we know there's at least one grant for the green communities coming up. And if we wanted to do some capital infrastructure stuff like chargers, we'd have the ability, but it's not a ton of money given the ARPA pot. And we can revisit it. I mean, if you wanted, it sounds like there's a lot of constraints because people are asking for money, not surprisingly. But if we wanted to go bold, I would say, take the 10 or 15 and then add whatever you want to go towards the stormwater engineering to get us ahead of that. Because otherwise, we're going to have to come back at an annual funding and say, we want to apply for this grant, but we can't afford the engineering study. So this is sort of giving us the flexibility to sort of, when the opportunities arise, to be able to do this stuff. So I think it's, I don't know if you can make it just, well, I don't expect you to make a decision now. It's more the background, but
Yeah.
it's for your discussion of like,
Okay.
how much you have and what do you want to do?
Okay, that's very helpful. I think, yeah, I'm not prepared to make a decision this evening, but part of this, what we were trying to do is if there were immediate things we needed to address, like by voting last week or tonight, and then sort of to see the whole picture. And what I'd like to do is to do the Energy Committee requests at a future meeting and then see if we have any more questions that we want answered.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I'd say,
Okay.
if you have questions and you want to shoot them to us.
Forward them to you. Okay.
Yeah, we can discuss. Before you kick us out the door, I just need to adjourn us since there's now 5 of us.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So do I
No
have-
problem.
Do I have a motion to adjourn from somebody? Who's going to unmute?
So
to say
moved,
that?
Gail.
Great. Second? I'll second for convenience. So, Gail.
Do we still have a quorum?
We should. Last I looked, there was you, me, Nate. Did we lose someone? And Graham. So,
Miriam,
and Miriam's there.
Okay.
So, Miriam, how do you vote?
aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Gail,
Aye.
Nate,
Aye.
I'm an aye. Thank you, Select Board. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Thank you. Okay. Again, my apologies for us running so behind this evening. But the next item on the agenda is to talk about the building committee charge for our new library. And I know we have at least a couple of, maybe one or two trustees here, or one trustee, a couple of trustees, and Mary Ann is here. So a draft charge and for the library building committee was circulated to the select board, and then there was a follow-up email from Mary Ann just detailing some of the requirements that the library folks, the MBLC, suggests and some of their requirements. So I thought that was pretty thorough. And Mary Ann, do you want to give us a quick overview, and then we can see if there are questions?
Do you want me to share it, or do you all have it in front of you? You probably all have it in front of you.
Mary Ann, you're set up to share if you have it.
Okay, why don't I share it then?
Sure.
Let's see, I just had it. Oh, there it is. Okay. There you go. So, so the sort of overall building committee will be, you know, a small, tight group of people who are really committed to working together quite a bit over the next 9 to 12 months. And then, you know, we've have these sort of types of people listed. So we need somebody who will be a great committee chair. We need somebody who's willing to be the clerk and take great minutes. It would be good to have somebody who has some finance experience. It'd be great to have people with construction and architecture and design and engineering experience. It'll be good to have somebody who can help keep everybody on task and working together. And it'd be really crucial to have somebody who's good at communications. And so these are just roles that we see, but we don't necessarily think we'll have one person for each of those roles. Some people might fulfill more than one of those roles. So like a library trustee might be great at communications or might be an architect. And then as the process goes on, there'll be smaller working groups that will form, and those are down further. And I'm sort of picturing that this initial group will be the design construction team. And then as we get further along in the process, we'll have a decorating committee and landscaping. When we're talking about energy systems and landscaping, we'll have people looking at sustainability and other kinds of things. So these are working groups that might form. There might be other working groups that might end up forming depending on how the process grows. And some of these groups might not ever form. So anyway, this is the charge, and we're happy to incorporate changes if any of you have any to suggest. I think it's pretty thorough and covers almost everything that could possibly happen.
Questions?
Yeah, I did have one question about the owner's project manager. Is it a project manager you're looking for, or a construction manager that you're looking for?
So the state calls it an owner's project manager. And it's usually somebody who has, I think that's all of them. It's usually somebody who is a contractor or an engineer with municipal construction experience. And so our owner's project manager will be somebody who has experience with library construction, with building libraries.
And that works for the town.
Yes,
right. Yeah. The town, yeah.
And it's a state requirement that any municipal construction project that is more than $1.5 million has an owner's project manager that works for the town and helps manage the project.
Okay, other questions? So Mary Ann, I know in your follow-up email, you said that this is kind of a joint decision, the library director and the select board, that the select board does the appointing, but you give us recommendations.
Right, the trustees. So here's what we think will happen. And then you tell me if you think this is what's going to happen. So we think that we're presenting you with this charge and that you'll agree to it or suggest changes. And then tomorrow I'll send out the charge to the community and ask people to submit emails, expressing interest and telling us why they're qualified. They don't have to give us their whole resume unless they want to. But letters of interest and their relevant experience. And then the trustees would like to look at those letters of interest at their next meeting, which is August 29th. And then they would like to make recommendations to the select board because it's the select board that appoints the committee.
Okay.
Okay. Does that make sense to
Yeah.
everybody?
Yeah. So you're looking for us just to support this committee charge. Do you want to vote from the? Okay. So any questions, Eric or Melissa? Anything else in the library committee charge?
One question I have is the initial committee. I mean, we sort of have obviously got some of the same skills as a building committee would have on there, but I noticed we have not had anybody from the building committee on that committee, which seems at least a little odd if you're building a huge building that you don't have anybody. We don't really have a building committee now either. That's the other thing. It's sort of
So where we are with the building committee is we've had a few people submit letters of interest, and I'm hoping that by the time we're getting ready to do this, do these appointments after the library trustees go through their process. I think what we said in the building committee is that in the new building committee charge is that there'd be 1 or 2 members of the building committee on any major project. So there could very well be overlap here. I would hope. So, we want to move ahead on the building committee and then see if any of those people fit into these categories.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
You want me to add, so it starts out saying that it'll include the library director, a member of the board of library trustees. Do you want me to put a member of the town of Shutesbury building committee?
Yeah.
Okay, because I feel like that's the bylaw, right?
That is right.
All right,
Yes.
so I'm going to put a member of the town of and I think I heard Eric saying he likes a comma there before the wording.
Yes.
Oh.
I second his comment.
And I have no opinion about commas. And so, okay. So I think that's fine to add that in. If there's a member of the building committee that, that wants to be on it and has the time and, and it might be that we would like this to get up and running by mid-September.
And we would like the building committee to be up and running by mid-September too, so.
Right.
We have common interests here. Okay, so do I hear a motion to approve the now amended Shutesbury Library Building Committee composition, context, and charge?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace and Neil, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. thank you. Thanks to the trustees for all the work in putting this together. And we will keep you posted on on our progress in getting the building committee.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
And thanks for your patience. Sorry we were late.
Oh, no problem.
Okay.
All right. All right. Thank you. All right.
righty.
Thanks,
Okay.
thanks for everything you do.
Okay.
All righty. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
All right, so we need to do some ZBA appointments. Becky, are you gonna take this?
Okay. Sorry, I didn't know if you were frozen for a second.
No.
No, I'm happy to. About a month ago, I sent out a town announce and inquiring if people were interested to be on the ZBA. At that point in time, Jeff Lacy was going to be the only member of the ZBA going into the new fiscal year, which is at the moment still the case. We've had 3 people come forward with interest. We have John Aristock, who Jeff had mentioned before, as well as Mary David, and we now have Michael Pill, who is also in the legal field as the outgoing chair, Chuck Damari. And all 3 are interested in participating on the ZBA. From Chuck's recommendation, he felt that it would be very positive to have Michael Pill on the committee. And we also already have Jeff's expertise. Both, I believe John Aristock will be new to the ZBA, as would Mary David. So currently there are 2 positions on the ZBA open and 2 alternates open for the select board to consider.
Okay. So we could appoint alternates too. So we could appoint 2 members and at least 1 alternate at it if we have 3 people.
Yes.
I saw John Aristock's email, but I have to be honest, I didn't really have a chance to review it. And we have information from Mary too.
Yes.
Yes, and we have Michael Pill's original email. And then when he thought of some concerns that he raised, and I spoke with Chuck Damari about the concerns about Coles and whether Coles comes before the ZBA, and Chuck said he could count on one hand the last times they've come before the ZBA in the last decade. So we didn't feel that was a problem, and especially if we have an alternate appointed, he could recuse himself if that were to occur.
Okay. I'm just contemplating the best way to move forward here. Looks like Mary is the only one of the candidates who's joined us this evening. And I know in the past, we have had people come and introduce themselves and sort of say why they're interested. And I don't know, I'm kind of inclined to not make the appointments without having those introductions. Maybe I'm being overly cautious here. Eric, Melissa, how do you feel? I mean, I wish I had caught this earlier to think about making sure people came to the meeting.
I know John Aristock is on vacation.
I see your hand, Jeff, but I just want to give Melissa and Eric a chance to.
I feel the same way you do, Rita, that we should be able to talk with them just a little bit, just a tidbit before appointing.
I'm okay with that. That's a good plan.
Yeah, it's just that we have 3 people for 2 positions, and then, the other would be the alternate. Jeff, did you have something that you wanted to add?
I was going to second the motion that John is on vacation, so he can't be here. Yeah, I think you should probably hear from everyone, and I think if people do want to be on the ZBA, they should appear before you.
Okay, that was sort of my take. Okay, so
I just want to say, learning that John couldn't be here, I did not push for Michael to attend, and Mary. I didn't reach out to any of them because I knew that one couldn't be here. So
okay, all right. So thank you, Mary, for showing up. But let's defer this to the next meeting.
do you mean the 2nd or the 16th?
Our next meeting is
the 2nd.
Can we wait till the 2nd? The 2nd, I'm not going to be here, right? I'm gonna get my calendar. So our next select board meeting is on August 2nd, and I will be in another time zone, so I'm not going to on vacation. So I think let's do it on the 16th.
Okay.
Are Melissa and Eric, are you both available for that meeting on the 16th?
Yeah.
Let me just check real quick. I just want to double check. Yes. Yep.
Jeff, is there any active work in front of the ZBA right now?
No, there's nothing. No cases with clocks that run. So I'm just fielding a few inquiries from people and working with Carrie a bit and working with Chuck and just trying to get ready for when things do start happening.
Okay.
Okay, so we can put it on the 16th. And then Becky, you'll notify, well, Mary, you're here, but notify John and Michael about that meeting. Okay. All right, good. Thanks, Jeff, for coming, and thank you, Mary, too, for showing up, and apologize that it's getting deferred. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a request for the select board to execute 3 grant agreements for the Community Preservation Committee. Those, I sit on that committee. So these are the 3 proposals that were approved at town meeting. What the CPC does is actually execute an agreement which has been reviewed by Donna to just set out the requirements and ensure that the grantees, which in 2 of the 3 cases are the Kestrel Land Trust, and then the third is the Historic Commission, that the grantees understand what the requirements are of the Community Preservation Act and comply with the statute. And also that the money is used for the purposes that that was approved by town meeting. And what we did this year, which is new in the grant agreement, is set some time parameters for performance, because we've had problems in a couple of cases where we've provided a grant and then the money hasn't been spent and years go by and we can't allocate that money. So we have a termination, there's termination language. It has to go back to town meeting if we terminate a grant, but we have set it up in the grant agreements that if there's no performance in typically in a 3-year period, then we have the right to sort of recommend to town meeting that the funds are withdrawn, put back into the CPC amount, although funds are never released until projects get underway, but that the allocation is withdrawn. So in the case where it's an intra-municipal agreement, meaning it's the town providing monies to a grant to a town committee, we have a very simple letter agreement that we sign. And in the case where it's an outside group, it's more detailed. Both of the Kestrel projects are pretty straightforward. One is a land acquisition, and then Ames Pond is doing the improvements at the entrance to the what was the Janowitz property. Questions?
No.
Okay, I think we should probably take these individually. So do I hear a motion to approve the grant agreement with the Kestrel Land Trust for the, I think it's called Lot 15, but I'm going to call it the Pelham Hill Road, Lot 15 acquisition?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. Do I hear a motion to approve the grant agreement with the Kestrel Land Trust for the entrance improvements and parking creation at Ames Pond?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. And do I hear a motion to approve the letter agreement with the Historic Commission for the restoration, rehabilitation of the guide board in the center of town?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. Okay, and I believe, do I sign those, Becky? Is that, I think that's.
I haven't signed them, so
Yeah,
I,
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay,
but we do copies in town hall.
right, okay. The town administrator updates.
Okay, have a couple. We had some interesting phone call from Elena today from Joe Comerford's office. We will likely to be receiving some earmark money, the amount yet to be determined. And that's always very exciting to hear. We have a couple updates on the Leverett Culvert project. The culvert that they're going to repair this year is right after the S-curves on Shutesbury Road in Leverett. And it's going to require closing down the road for likely 1 to 2 weeks. They are requesting, they want to put a sign up on 202 asking people to take an alternative route to Amherst. And I think everyone in town will appreciate that sign being up there. Even if it's up there a little early, it'll slow down traffic over the top of the hill. And it's something that we will appreciate I know the police department certainly will, and sitting from my vantage point at the market, it's amazing how if we don't get cones out on a Saturday morning, the cars are flying through there, despite all the patrolling that's been done in that location. So that's the big news, is that there's going to be the shutdown of the S-curve route into Amherst for a week or two, and I will get dates out as soon as we have them. I know Margie McGinnis is also working with the newspapers and a lot of press releases out.
Becky, are you assuming it's this summer or it's going
Yes.
to be in the fall? Oh, in the summer. Okay.
Yeah. She said they didn't have dates, but they had heard it was going to be during August. If it's anything like our culvert, who knows? It could be delayed until September. The update on the culvert at Locks Pond is that we are now hoping for a break to be able to do it in November. But if that does not occur in their other schedules, I have been researching and talking to Howie Kinder, the dam keeper, about whether it's possible or not to do the project in the spring. I have not yet talked to Concom. There will be issues on that end too. There's a current permitting that requires that the lake starts to come back up in by April 1st. I just went over the last 5 years of dates with Howie, and his key factor in having the water come back up is that the ice has to be gone. He can't bring the water back up while there's still ice. He spoke of one year there were 2 different times that the ice broke, and then he started to come up and then it refroze and he had to wait and do it again later. But typically it only happens once. And depending on discussions with Concom, at some point we will find out if they'll entertain the idea of having the water come all the way up, for not having it come all the way up for an extra couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks in April or not. The other updates are today we had the National Grid fellow came to do an energy audit, starting with the elementary school, and then we worked through the highway department, town hall, and the library. The fire department will be reviewed when he returns to do the envelope audit with another contractor. So that's in progress, and we are mindful of the date of the October date for the next round of Green Communities grants.
So this was being done in anticipation of a Green Communities grant application.
I believe so. I am putting it in that frame, having talked to the gentleman and looking over. Yeah, because ideally you don't do the audit unless you are preparing to do a grant, but usually you give yourself more than a month, 2 months to do the grant, because the audit won't be complete. Like, they're going to have to rush it through. So the Energy Committee contracted or called in and requested the audit, and they haven't spoken to me about it. So outside of it being scheduled. So I will.
Who actually does the audit? Does National Grid actually do the audit, or they hire somebody to do it?
They hire another small company of engineers, it appears. And then they have cards that have National Grid's name on them, but they're working independently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't have that card.
And one other quick question I had is going back to the first thing you mentioned, the earmarking. Is that a result of our asking for money when that letter that we sent, or is that something else?
Mary Ann requested money for the library, and early on. And then they called, and the way it was framed in my conversation was that they are calling all the towns in Joe's and Comerford's district, and that they're hoping to give each town about $50,000 to their priority project that they have in place. And the question was, what should that be, the library or the school roof? And I talked to Rita quickly about that, and we ended up saying it would be the school roof at this point.
Okay,
Do you want any further explanation?
no,
Okay. But we don't know, this is just, it sounds like because the state has such a surplus that, that they're talking about doing earmarks. So they're kind of doing something across the board with all communities. Yeah, Becky had called me because they wanted to know really quickly yesterday, like we had a deadline, about 2 hours to put something in. And I had a conversation both with Becky and with Marianne about my feeling that that we have the library funding in hand. We don't have the school roof funding in hand, and that there's a lot of, unknowns about the school roof and about the extent. And so that was, I felt that was a higher priority. And, really at the end of the day, it's all one pie and we're just dividing it up different ways. But the school roof for me is, the uncertainty about what that's going to cost is very concerning. So.
I agree.
I do too.
Good.
Yeah,
Since I made that executive decision, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I didn't, Elena gave me till noon and I didn't track Rita down till 11:30. So she really didn't have much time at all. But
okay, anything else, Becky?
no, that's it for tonight.
All right, so as I mentioned earlier, I will not be at the August 2nd meeting. So Melissa, I will step in as to chair that, and then we will be meeting again on the 16th. So
We have
I'm
a meeting this Thursday, don't we?
We
Like
do have a
last-
meeting this Thursday. That's right.
No one's mentioned that.
That's right. That should have been in our update. So we have an interview with the one and only remaining candidate for fire chief at 5 o'clock on Thursday. And we will be in person. It will be a hybrid meeting, correct? So the select board will be in person at the town hall with Lenny Zerwanka, who is our candidate. This is the second interview. And anything else?
I'll arrive a little early to help Becky set up for the
Thank
tech
you.
part of that.
I did another test run and I got it to work. So I might surprise you this time.
And just a heads up, I have to leave that meeting by 6. I'm hoping it's over by then anyway, but I throw that out there. Yeah, I think it will be too.
Yes, I think that an hour will be more than.
There's no public comment on the agenda.
Right.
Okay.
And yeah, I guess the format for that will be, I know there were questions that Eric, you as the chair of the search committee put forth. I assume, if each one of us wants to come up with questions, we should do that in advance, but we won't share them.
Should I mention to the search committee that we're having this meeting? I probably should, right? Just say we're having it.
Sure.
If they want to come,
Yeah.
they can
Sure.
come.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
that would be good.
Okay.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you for mentioning that.
I-
So-
I
Becky,
do
any-
want to thank Linda Scott, whose official day
Last day.
was last Friday. And she generously is hanging in here. I guess the other update I didn't mention is I actually got a submission of a resume that I'll be sharing with you all once I scan it. And we'll
Or
move
the
from there.
administrative
Or
secretary.
the administrative secretary position that Linda is going to hold the fort until it is filled up to 9 hours a week. And
Thank you, Linda.
Easy today. I wanted to call her 3 times, but I didn't. So you're all should have enjoy your freedom.
The transition for everyone.
Yeah. You have to wean us off of Linda.
Right.
Well, yes, thank you, Linda, for sticking with us through this transition time. Okay, so do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Carol, aye. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you Thursday.
Thank you.
See you
Good night.
Thursday.
Good night.
Bye.